Greetings and welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. I'm Phyllis Hollis, your host. As an extension of my Instagram page, Cerebral Women, this podcast offers insights into the visual art world. I interview artists, mainly artists of color and female artists, who will freely articulate what inspires their creativity. In addition, you'll hear interesting perspectives from dedicated art professionals who work with artists and the art institutions that feature them. I'm confident that collectively, these individuals will indeed stimulate your mind as they do our eyes. Please know these interviews are conducted in my Manhattan apartment, so please forgive the background sounds of city life. Welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. The Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast starts 2021 hopeful and optimistic. The first 4 episodes will feature 4 men, 3 artists and 1 collector, who were all previously incarcerated. I really want to acknowledge these men for their ambition and drive and the ability to thrive and persevere despite being subjected to the injustices inflicted upon them by the judicial system. I would like to feature in this episode Sherrill Roland. He is an interdisciplinary artist who creates art that challenges ideas around controversial social and political constructs and generates a safe space to process, question, and share. He was born in Asheville, North Carolina, and received an MFA in studio art from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Inspired by his experience in prison for crime he did not commit, he founded the Jumpsuit Project to raise awareness around issues related to mass incarceration. Sherrill's socially engaged art project has been presented at Open Engagement Chicago, Oakland City Hall, and the Michigan School of Law. He was awarded the Center for Documentary Studies Post-MFA Fellowship in the Documentary Arts at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, and the Rights of Return USA Fellowship. After completing the Fountainhead Residency in Miami, Florida, he returned to North Carolina as an artist in residence at the McColl Center of Art and Innovation. In December, Sherrill was the recipient of the 2021 Creative Capital Award. It gives me pleasure to acknowledge him. It's an unfortunate situation, and it does have a happy ending, thank goodness. And with that, welcome Sherrill Roland to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. Sherrill, I am delighted to feature you on my Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. Your life experiences so far are very important ones, and I think that it would be helpful for others to have the opportunity to learn from you as I did in the process of getting to know you for this interview. So welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, my pleasure, my pleasure. So, how should we start out here? Well, I know that you were always interested in being an artist. So let's talk about your early years and when did you recognize your interest in creating visual art?
Yeah, I think, for me, I was a very quiet child, and I began, my first approach in doing drawings and sketchings for myself was mostly just tracing comic books, Spider-Man, things of that nature. As I got older in my preteens, my neighbor's older brother was really into hip hop. I wasn't allowed to listen just yet, but he used to introduce me to Source magazines and hip hop culture magazines. And I saw him draw imagery from those magazines. And then that's how I began to start elevating into more realistic portraitures and things of that nature. What kept me going, I loved the way it made me feel of being in the zone of making. It really grabbed a hold of my attention, and I could just kind of get lost in that way of making. And I became very comfortable with it. But what made me comfortable out in the world showing people was, the little things like my cousins around my age, taking my drawings and then showing them to either like my aunts or my grandmother, and then they liking it. And then, along the way, people in high school when I, started doing a little more advanced drawings and things of that nature, like my grandmother getting one of my pastel drawings framed, and my aunt and uncle grabbing one and then, hanging it up in their house. Like that's how I was kind of introduced to like, my confidence started to begin to build in that way. But even I never thought of it as a career. I just thought that I was, I had an ability and I should go with that. But I was kind of going in different ways in the beginning. Like, I went through a more digital way, like, video, graphic design, even web design, as I got into undergraduate type of timeline. And then post undergrad, I began to, get back into stop motion animation. It introduced me to photography, video editing, even sketching out storyboards. So I was still able to kind of have my hand involved. And then it all changed once I attempted to go into grad school for the very first time. And then that's when I began to get more introduced to conceptual art and visual art of different ways.
Do you recall why you leaned more towards digital?
I've always had a fascination with movies, and I like to work on a number of different things at one time, especially within my practice to this day. So I think it was just the early part of me learning my habits and what I felt comfortable with. The camera, and shoot photographs, and then there was a production element of like setting up scenes and spaces that I was shooting, and then there was the post-production of like getting all of that and then using video editing software. So it seemed like it seems elaborate, but I was like attentive to detail, so it was like hitting so many points of what I assumed was necessary for me to kind of like make and keep me like just busy. And so yeah, I've been a big fan of motion graphics and things of that nature. Like I've been a fan of the James Bond movies, the series, and the opening and ending credits were something that I always waited for. I was really more towards visual aesthetic in the beginning, just more of the look and the style of things.
And how your life has changed, right? How your art has changed over the years. So, so share with us how you decided to establish the Jumpsuit Project, your performance art.
Yeah. So like all those habits that I was mentioning that was building and building, and my attention to visual aesthetic, like, putting the things that I like, making things that I felt and thought was cool was the main motivator. And during grad school, once I was wrongfully incarcerated in Washington, D.C., the time that I spent not only incarcerated, but the time before it, almost a year and a half fighting it, a little less than a year incarcerated, and about 6 months on probation after that. All of that, my relationship with art completely changed. It was really attached to the level of hope that kind of was there and then left, as far as like me, returning to art. So when I came out of that experience, I didn't really want to touch art the same way. The same reasons why I approached art wasn't there anymore. And those habits that I had definitely were not being attended to in those conditions. When I chose to do so in there, it had everything to do with the meaning and less about like a visual aesthetic, It was like the reason why I was making it for the family or the recipient of the other, person that I was in there with, like, like why it was so more important, because we were not able to give in that situation. So this item became so much more. And so it was just all about the context of making that kind of switch. And so when I came home, I didn't want to make when I tried to get back out in the world and was frustrated about that. So when I was encouraged to return to art, I was starting from a foundation that was different from before. And my approach to that came from really questioning myself and my life at that time in the spaces that I was walking into with this new experience, with this new way of seeing the world and experiencing the world. And so in a weird way, as this Jumpsuit Project began, it had the work itself, the work within the work was more so just about me. It was selfish.
It should be.
Yeah, I needed to figure some things out about myself. Now I can't say that it was a foolproof plan in the beginning, but I was 100% sure that I needed to take that step. And so I needed to be exposed to the truths of the world. I needed to be able to withstand the world's views of me in this experience. I needed to work on the trust issues that I had out in the world, but by also not in doing it in a comfortable setting. I knew the work that needed to be done needed to be in an uncomfortable setting. I needed to be somewhat of an even playing field. And so injecting the suit on a college campus, wearing an orange jumpsuit on a college campus for a year shook things up a little bit. And it was able not only to be a learning experience for me, but I was able to get a certain honesty from that community, from that controlled space that helped me, practice and build better habits of talking about the situation and stretching the space that I was occupying for a year so that I could feel comfortable moving through it.
So listeners really don't know that much about you. I'll say most of them.
Okay.
So do you want to share your experience and how you ended up being incarcerated?
Yeah, it's going to be the quick version.
That's fine. That's fine. We want to talk about other things too. Yes.
Yeah. Because, it's a lot, oftentimes I talk about, we can always think about time as like 1 year, 2 year things, but it only can take a moment to really change your life, and there's so much gravity to just a moment. My story began in 2012 when I was made aware that I had a warrant out for my arrest in Washington, D.C. I'm born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina, and I attended school at the University of North Carolina in Greensboro. And so at the time, I was going for my MFA degree at UNC Greensboro. This warrant situation came up in Washington, D.C., and I hadn't at that point been to D.C. for a number of years. So I was confused and concerned of how I could even ring up in that area. But nonetheless, I did. They expressed the charges, but not specificity, like, what the charges were. They just told me that it was 4 felonies, and I had to wait for an indictment for the courts to reach an indictment, which took another 9 months for them to take me to a jury trial. And so essentially that was my first year of grad school, was waiting to go to trial, or for me, on my side, my perspective, waiting for them to just drop it. But they never produced any witnesses or evidence. And ultimately they had another opportunity to lower the 4 felonies to 4 misdemeanors, and take me straight to a bench trial where a judge is the only one who would determine my fate. That trial date was set entering in my second year into grad school. I was found guilty, was sentenced to a year and 30 days in prison, because Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, any sentence that's a day over a year is considered federal. So I would have went to a federal prison. Ultimately, they just kept me in their city center jail, hinting at the orange jumpsuit and why I wore the orange jumpsuit. It's basically a county jail, but in DC specifically, it's a hub. It works totally different than any other county jail that I'm aware of, due to that it's not a city, it's a district and not a state. But I served my full amount of time, did my probation time. I still had more. I only did 6 months because that's when I got a retrial. And I won my retrial and then won my exoneration trial, which therefore cleared everything, my records, made it as though, as far as my record was concerned, that, I had no parts of it. It was not me, being very specific and clarifying that I was innocent. It just took them long enough, for them to figure that out. But in so doing that, after all of that, I went back to grad school, made the choice and the decision to return to grad school to finish my second year, which I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to do so. And in doing that, I started a performance project that was essentially me wearing an orange jumpsuit every day on campus until I graduated. And the performance regimen of that was that the same rules that I had while incarcerated, while wearing the orange jumpsuit, I operated under those same rules while attending school wearing the orange jumpsuit. So the architecture took on different meanings that were relative to the correctional institution in Washington, D.C., where I had lived, about a year or so before. And I continue to do that now, as well as producing other objects coming from the experiences and things that I've kind of learned along the way.
Mm-hmm. And you've taught a lot of lessons. How did people react to you on campus? And do you feel that you taught them a lot about mass incarceration?
I hope so. I've been very privileged enough, again, to return back to the school after I graduated and do talks in different departments because, these issues, obtain to everybody. And so injecting that suit on campus really flattened the hierarchy. So students, employees, professors, directors, deans, what have you, everybody became equal on the same playing field when addressing this issue or having these conversations. So returning after post-graduation and speaking with some of the students, I was able to gain an understanding of proximity. So there's some reactions that were in my face, but then there was also some reactions that I didn't know people experience with me from afar, because it's a bright orange suit. People can see me from far away. And some students that came forward about, calling the police on me from a distance because they saw me walking into a parking garage.
Wow.
And it's just like, some were very blatant in front of my face, like not acknowledging that I was a person and I became an object. All the reactions were very important to me, whether I was ignored or whether somebody ran from me or whether somebody hugged me. It was all important. It was all just me learning about preparing myself for, like, this is the world that I have to kind of deal with. There's going to be some people that are going to be very disrespectful to me. There's people who, think I'm a threat. Then there's also love out there for me too. Like, those are just really good, hard truths. Now, I also hope that by me opening myself up to kind of talk about my very personal experience, that some of the people that I spoke with kind of got a little bit of relief by being able to talk to somebody in that space. I remember a lot of great conversations that I had with people who spoke to me in confidence just about either family members being incarcerated or experiences that they had with trauma specifically that's unrelated to incarceration. I found that people were in search of the same things that I was. And I know I've grown a lot, so I hope that those other folks have too.
And when you and I spoke earlier, we sort of got on topic of life's lessons. What lessons did you learn those 12-month, 30-day period?
There's so many. I mean, it's not like it's a long list. Value my values and what I thought was valuable in the beginning prior to the experience definitely has changed and coming out. Again, it's parallel to like with the work and art itself, what things matter, what things don't, especially of what I have control over and faith. Yeah, that was a real big trip up for me, was learning to let go of this idea of there was so much I was holding on to in the beginning. I wanted to get back to school. I wanted to, I made it so far. It took me so hard to get to grad school. I wasn't like a high mark student. And so there was so much I thought I had fought for and gained, and it sucked to kind of get it taken away from me. But then I realized going through that experience was that I wasn't in control of that in the first place. And it had more to do about the reasons why I wanted things. And so once I changed the reasons why I wanted certain things, the things that I wanted changed. Nowadays, I have a daughter now. My daughter was born while I was incarcerated. So it's not necessarily about things, but more so about appreciating time and experiences with people, the things that can't be taken away from us. Like this conversation now, us, hopefully in the future we'll be able to meet face to face, but these are moments, these are times that we spend together that nobody can take away from me. And so it's like changing that value structure of things that I wanted and what I saw as important to me moving forward.
And through your art, have you found that people are learning through you? That when you share your story, that they're understanding it?
Yes, I think a lot of times it depends on the space that my work is shown. I've been lucky enough to be, have my work presented in museums, but then also public spaces. And then most recently, I've been to a couple, like I went back and visited the jail that I was incarcerated in. And there was a guy that was present that was in there when I was locked up. When I was in there, he had already done 20 years. And so I had since, got out and then returned to do this talk about my work, and he was still there. And so speaking to him about it and the other men and women that were in that facility, and then I've talked at some youth detention centers, it's a totally different read of the work due to the experience. And so that affirmation, I guess, sometimes, that I have to explain less in those spaces. It becomes a different conversation. And so in other spaces where the experience seems a little further out, there has to be somewhat of an explanation of some of the details within the work and why it's important. Some of the other, in that correction facility, I really didn't have to explain much about the work. It's a funny thing. They just like, oh yeah, they connected with it and understood it. The readability of it was just very easy. And that made me feel very grateful that I was able to communicate that through, objects in this performance. I am, speaking speaking about it correctly in that way.
Right. So on your website, you share a number of different performances. What would you say is the most impactful performance that you've done?
Most impactful?
Where you really educate people and they feel your experience and perhaps even have a much better understanding of what it's like to be incarcerated and to lose everything.
Yeah. I mean, even that in itself, that's very hard to allow somebody to kind of understand. So in many ways, I hope that we, me and the audience that's there can kind of meet somewhat halfway to get closer to a halfway point of understanding. I think the space itself has a lot to do with the amount of growth. I've been in some public libraries in some cities where people do not want to exchange in a conversation with me. But then certain institutions like Studio Museum in Harlem, that was a big thing big time for a number of different reasons for me. But that community, the way that institution felt ingrained in that community was something that's very rich. And the Brooklyn Public Library, the Grand Plaza, that was also an experience where, like, when I'm out in the public, and again, this merging of hierarchy, like, the director of the library can come down, but I also have somebody that's down there selling water, stepping in my duct tape perimeter with me, having a conversation. And it relies less on me being the lead, but it requires everybody inside that space to kind of like speak. If you step inside that space, then that means you have something to say. And so other people bring their experiences in there, and we all engage in learning from each other's experiences. And so that's been very rewarding, is that, detectives have shown up, formerly incarcerated citizens, people have, returning citizens, they have just, stepped inside the space, questioning, this orange jumpsuit attire
Right.
there's not really many signs that say what I got going on. So it alerts people in different ways. But again, for people to step inside that space and share their experiences too. There's no video cameras or audio that's recorded. So hopefully to keep the comfort level very, very good to where everybody is okay with sharing and we all learn from each other. I can only bring what I know and from where I've been incarcerated. But going out to LA at lace exhibitions on the Hollywood Boulevard, folks who've been around showed up, folks who had been incarcerated in Alabama, Mississippi, stepped inside that square and was talking about California. So it's just very rich experience to have that type of dialogue in just these pop-up spaces.
It's wonderful. And how was your experience at Skowhegan? I mean, just the whole process of applying and, wondering if you'll get accepted and then actually going there. I mean, was it, I'm assuming, therapeutic, huh?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was really amazing. It was something that was spoken about around my academic institution where I received my degree. But not too many people had attended this residency. Only one of my faculty members, went to Skowhegan, and that, I believe it was in the 90s. And so it was amazing for the university itself to be sending a student to Skowhegan. But then once I got there, it was great to meet so many different artists from all around the world and to gain perspective in that space, which is really nice, where we could rely on each other, visit each other, speak to one another, and engage and build with one another without many distractions. And not only just for the recipients, like the applicants, but then also like the visiting faculty who stay with us and those who visit us and visit our studios. It was really, really, really great to learn. Yeah, because there was a few other people from the South, like through Tennessee, which was great. So you also feel like I also felt like a representative for my state, being the only one there from North Carolina.
That's great. You felt proud?
I did.
You were representing?
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, looking at that list. I was like, yeah, like, and then, speaking with my peers back home, folks who had applied and always been wanting, I got a lot of questions when I came back about the experience itself. And, to those same friends that I met and people who, who work there, I consider them all friends when I mention the word friends. It's not just like other young artists that were there. But yeah, like, I've slept on people's couches, like, we've all remained very close afterwards. It's a really rich bonding experience that I have never felt or experienced anything like that before. It changed me in a lot of great ways. That's good. Yeah, and I'm it's great it's happened. It's great that you attended the residency at this, at that particular stage in your life and in your career. Well, we could talk forever, but I'm going to have to ask you my final question. Okay. And in many ways, you've sort of answered it, but indirectly, someone asked you the direct question, and that is, what do you feel is your role as an artist? Yeah, that's a really great question. I've been fortunate enough to believe in art in ways of changing perspective, of ways of eliciting like empathy, seeing the same things that we see every day differently. Mm-hmm. And that leads to better understanding. And in a way, I try to explain this to my daughter a lot, because at her age, she's a lot more comfortable telling people she's an artist. I didn't become comfortable with telling people that I was an artist until like a couple years ago. So like, she's like, I'm an artist, and that's a very beautiful thing. And so I try to ask her questions and speak to her in a way of saying how important her eyes are, the way she sees the world and moves through the world, and to, try to get her to create in a way that's showing her voice and how important it is. And I think that's what I'm going to continue to do as my role is try to use my voice, my view on things, and share them with the world. I hope, that we could all kind of get a better understanding. I happen to have an experience that shared, and it's incorporated with other people's lives. And I also want to kind of bring some of those lessons in to the work, and think that they are important for a wider audience to understand and see and get a perspective on, for sure.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I mean, in a way, it's a sacrifice coming from your heart. And it's so important that the lessons that you've learned and the things that you've experienced, you can take that and educate people who may, unintentionally have the wrong impression of anyone who was incarcerated, be it for 12 months to 40 years. I think it's important for people to understand. So thank you for what you do, and I'm wishing you the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for listening to Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. For additional content, please visit cerebralwomen.com and be sure to follow Cerebral Women on Instagram.